We are a few voters short of a quorum at the moment, but we also have the opportunity to welcome Father Thomas Nestor. Father Tom Nestor is the pastor of the collaborative parish of St. Paul Parish in downtown Hingham and Resurrection in South Hingham. Tom is a wonderful priest. He's so wonderful of a priest that despite having a wedding to officiate at 3 o'clock, he is with us here today, my having informed him, perhaps optimistically, that we would start at 2 and he could be on his way at 2:10. So lest I have a bride and groom picketing my house at Cross Street later today, I would like Tom to allow us to center ourselves on the serious work we're about to do, the privilege that we have in doing it, of having self-governance by the people and of the people and for the people here in Hingham. And Father Tom Nestor.
So we'll call this a quorumless prayer. Let us pray. Holy One, Almighty One, Creator of all, the blade of grass beneath our feet, the majestic sky above, and all that is. We ask your blessing upon these proceedings today. We thank you for the women and men who serve Hingham and care for its governance. We thank you for the abundant blessings we enjoy in this land, in this town. Amen.
Thank you.
Best
Father.
wishes to you.
Thanks. It will. It will. How many? We'll be ready to begin in a moment. We have some special guests with us today, and there are at least 295 of you already. But there are a couple of people I do want to recognize, one of whom is our Congressman, Stephen Lynch. He's down from Washington, and I think it'd be good at this moment, Congressman Lynch, I have afforded him 6 minutes on the dot. And if you come forward, and I won't count the crossing time toward the 6. I'm glad we have a fit congressman.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Michael, Mr. Moderator, for your kindness. I realize there are several very important items on the warrant today, so I will be brief. Senator O'Connor, I saw him earlier, Representative Joan Moschino, my colleagues in government, and members of town meeting. I would just initially note that in terms of federal funding for Hingham, I was very pleased to see that the town received $2.8 million from the first COVID relief package. Most of that was targeted towards the additional health expenses that Hingham was required to undertake because of the pandemic. And the town is also expecting, and I'm not sure if this has arrived yet, but $2,430,000 from the American Rescue Plan. In addition, a couple of months ago, we passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, the so-called Jobs and Infrastructure Law, and we're seeing that funding being allocated by the legislature and by the governor as we go forward. So much of that is still in the discretion of the governor and of the legislature. But there's $1.2 trillion that we approved for the nation, for all of the states and territories. The state of Massachusetts' share in that is about $9.5 billion over the next 5 years to basically invest in our infrastructure and transportation systems. This includes $5.4 billion for roads, but also $2.3 billion for modernization of our public transportation, which I serve on the Transportation Committee, and we added a healthy section to go towards ferry construction, pier construction, and also ferry service. So hopefully we'll be able to use that funding to get us back to where we need to be. There are currently, just so you know, there are currently about 472, I was an iron worker for about 20 years before I came to Congress, and there are 472 bridges in Massachusetts that are structurally deficient. So either they can't carry the loads they were designed for, or we've had to shut down a lane here or there to decrease the volume of traffic on those bridges. So it's really important to our public safety for the entire region. Last month, the House also passed a $1.5 trillion government funding package that will help support American families by investing in jobs, funding benefits for our veterans, and expand affordable housing for seniors and persons with disabilities. That appropriations package will help working families by investing about $17.2 billion to expand early learning opportunities, early learning programs, $14.5 billion for special education, and I know the additional burden that some communities shoulder because of the added cost there, and about $400 million increase for the Pell Grant Student Financial Assistance Program. It also makes historic investments in our public health, which includes about $3.9 billion for substance abuse, which is extremely important, unfortunately. Notably, this bill also delivers about $13.6 billion in emergency funding for the Ukrainian people and defending global democracy in the wake of Russia's unprovoked attack on Ukraine. Thank you. Does the clapping come off my time?
It does.
Oh, I'm sorry. No more clapping, okay? Just so you know, several weeks ago, I had the opportunity to lead a congressional delegation to the Ukrainian border. So we went to Poland, we went to Romania, we went to Moldova, and it was heartbreaking to see families divided at that border as people were rushing out. You know, the Russians have targeted the civilian population. But to see families, and in many, many cases, the husband and wife were dropping off the kids at the border and then going back in to fight. And I've never seen anything like that in my life. On the upside, I was very proud to see that there were no refugee camps in Poland or in Romania or in Moldova. Every single one of the 4 million refugees coming out of Ukraine was accepted into a private home, which is unbelievable when you think about it. And especially Moldova, which is probably the 4th poorest country in Europe, those people don't have 2 nickels to rub together, and yet they were taking in families and giving what they could. I got an opportunity to spend time with the Ukrainian parliament members and also their military, and I'm extremely proud of the 82nd Airborne, our sons and daughters who are doing tremendous work there, helping with the refugees, but also providing defense opportunities. On a related matter, this week Congress passed the Ukraine Democracy Defense Lend-Lease Act, which some people will remember is evocative of the Lend-Lease Act that was adopted in 1941 to help the British fight back against Nazi oppression. So that will make sure that the weapon systems that we're getting there get there faster, that there are more of them, and that we provide stronger support to the Ukrainian military.
You have 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. I did have a chance to talk with the Ukrainian military and the 82nd Airborne, and they tell me that once a weapon system or ammunition arrives in Poland, Romania, or Moldova, it's 6 to 10 hours before those weapons, that ammunition, is in the hands of Ukrainian forces. So they're doing a wonderful, wonderful job, and we're very, very grateful for them. In closing, I just want to thank you for being involved. You know, Hingham is a shining example of what's best about America. You honor your veterans, and I see Keith German here, a great Hingham resident and a dear, dear friend. You take care of your seniors, and I know that we got a contingent from Linden Ponds here, but you also care deeply about your children. And every year, and it continues today, Hingham has the highest number of young men and women who are accepted to West Point, the Naval Academy, the Merchant Marine Academy, the Coast Guard Academy, the Air Force Academy, of any town in my district. And you are not the biggest. You are not the biggest town, but you always have more young people. I'm not going to, the time limit won't allow me to name all the kids that are right now, including J.T. German, who's at the Naval Academy, who are right now kids from Hingham. And the great majority of them graduates from Hingham High School. So that's a great credit to your public school system as well, because it's such a competitive process. But thank you for being here. I'm very proud to represent you in the United States Congress. God bless the town of Hingham, and God bless these United States of America. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd now invite you to rise as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Keith German, Director of Veteran Services.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All the way, Chief.
The town clerk has informed me that the meeting appears to be properly and duly called. There is available today a booklet containing the warrant for the meeting, as well as the report and the recommendation of the advisory committee, along with reports of the select board, the capital outlay committee, the planning board, the personnel board, and the school department. In addition, I have appointed citizens of the town to serve as tellers for any standing votes and any ballot votes. As is our tradition, I have admitted to the meeting a number of guests, and we are pleased to have them with us today. Each is seated in the guest section. Guests are not allowed, of course, to vote on any matter that comes before the meeting. On behalf of all citizens of the town, I'd like to thank Harbor Media for providing the closed-circuit television coverage for this meeting. The meeting is also being recorded for later broadcast on the local access cable channels. Of course, there is no smoking allowed anywhere on the premises here. I'd like you to please take a moment to make sure your cell phones are off, and also to refrain from using your phones from sending or receiving text messages absent an emergency or some other compelling reason. The town election will be held on Saturday, May the 14th. The details can be found on page 73 of the warrant booklet and are also on the town's website. Next, I call your attention to the Talent Bank application form. That's set forth at the end of the booklet of the warrant at page 101. If you turn to it, you'll see it's a wonderfully simple form inviting citizens of the town to step forward and serve the community. Members of the select board and the moderator always welcome volunteers for service on the many appointed town committees. If you are interested, and I exhort you to take a look, I mean, it's wonderful service. We are truly blessed in this town, not only to have self-governance, but to have a wonderful cross-section of people who step up and serve the town. So all you need to do is you can fill out the Talent Bank application. You can give it to one of us today, or you can fill it out online, which is, of course, increasingly the mode of choice. The Talent Bank application can be found readily on the town's website, completed on the site, and select board members and the moderator will meet with those who wish to give service to the town. Typically, we begin those interviews straight away in May and June to have new citizens in place, or to have people who are re-upping, as the case may be, on board July 1 when the new fiscal year begins. I'll take a moment here from my left to your right to introduce at the far end of the table Art Robert, an assistant town administrator. Next to Art, Tom Mayo. Next to Tom, Michelle Monsegur. Immediately to my left, Carol Falvey, our town clerk. And then Joe Fisher, Bill Ramsey, and Liz Klein, the members of the select board. I'd like to take a moment and ask you to turn to pages 3 and 4 of the warrant booklet to make certain that we're all fully familiar with the procedures that we will follow today. I will not read them all, but I do want to read some of them, particularly if you might be new to taking part in the meeting. An article. We'll discuss a number of articles. What's an article? An article is a question. If you look at the articles, you'll see that each and every one is posed as a question. Will the town do X? Will the town do Y? Then there are motions. The motion is a proposed answer to the question. The proposed answer must be within the scope of the article. I note, because we're often asked this, an article, once an article is published in the warrant, it cannot be amended. A motion can be amended by a vote of the meeting, but not an article. And I think it's important to the meeting. The warrant is a warning. It tells citizens this is what the meeting is going to take up as a series of matters. So it wouldn't be fair to the citizenry if you could change an article after the warrant was published. Now, if the advisory committee, these hardworking people behind me, the 15-member advisory committee that serves to advise the meeting and also to really scrub articles that will come before the meeting, if the advisory committee is representing an affirmative motion under an article, the advisory committee's affirmative motion will be received as the main motion under that article. Now, a voter may propose to amend the motion, either to change it in part or to substitute a whole new motion, so long as it's within the scope of the question. And in that case, the proposed amendment will be taken up and voted on first. And then the main motion, as it may have been amended, will be acted upon. Now, if the advisory committee were to recommend no action under an article, basically to just let it fall, and a voter offers an affirmative motion, then the voter's motion will be received as the main motion under the article. That too is subject to amendment. All motions and proposed amendments to motions that involve the expenditure of money must be in writing. So must other motions and proposed amendments, unless they're so brief and so simple as to be easily understood when stated orally. Limits on speaking. Even if you're a member of the United States Congress, no one may speak on any subject for more than 6 minutes for the first time or more than 3 minutes the second time. And no one may speak more than 2 times on a question unless all others who have not spoken on that question and desire to speak have had the opportunity to do so. No speaker is allowed to indulge in personalities, but must confine his or her remarks to the matter that is before the meeting. Again, I've already talked about guests. At the bottom of page 3, this warrants a brief conversation. You may hear somebody make a motion for the previous question. The motion for the previous question is intended to end discussion and have an immediate vote on the matter that is pending before you. That motion, the motion for the previous question, is not debatable, but it does require for adoption a majority. Now, the moderator will decline to accept a motion for the previous question if there are other voters who are seeking recognition and if both sides have not had a fair opportunity to be heard. The moderator will, however, accept the motion for the previous question if it appears that both sides or all sides have been heard and that the discussion has become repetitious. Voting procedures, pretty important for a legislative body, which is what you all are. Votes here are taken in the first instance by voice vote. If I am in doubt as to the results of a vote, or if 7 voters should rise and express doubt as to the result that I have declared, then we'll have a counted vote. A counted vote is taken as a standing vote, except there is an opportunity for a ballot vote to be taken instead of a standing vote. It's not a second bite at the apple, if either of 2 things happen. Either the advisory committee or 50 members, strike that, 50 voters promptly call for a ballot vote. Now, a ballot vote takes considerable time, and consequently, the practice here in Hingham has been not to request a ballot vote if there are not compelling reasons to do so. No vote may be reconsidered except after a 2/3 vote on a motion to reconsider that vote. And a vote may not be reconsidered a second time or after a motion to reconsider it has failed. At the time that the warrant is completed, sometime before midnight, we will receive a motion to dissolve, I didn't say how much before, but a motion to dissolve the meeting, it will be in order. Now, if you wish to speak, please rise and seek my attention or approach one of the microphones. When you are recognized by the moderator, please state your name and address each time you speak. So if you were to get up a second time and think, oh, they know who I am, please, each time you will identify yourself. So let us begin our journey through the warrant. The first item before us is Article 1. Article 1 is one we see each year, and it asks the following question. Will the town choose all necessary town officers other than those elected by ballot, including the following? One member of the committee, the Hannah Lincoln Whiting Fund Committee, to have charge of the income of that fund for a term of 3 years, along with one trustee of the bathing beach to fill a vacancy in accordance with Chapter 75 of the Acts of 1934. The recommended motion of the advisory committee is set forth at page 21. Laura Boyle to be re-elected as a member of the Whiting Fund, and Adrian Ramsey to be elected as a trustee of the bathing beach. Is there discussion? Hearing none, we come to vote on the recommended motion under Article 1. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Article 2. Article 2 is one we see each year. It says, will the town assume liability for all damages that may be incurred by work to be performed by the DCR, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, for the improvement, development, maintenance, and protection of tidal and non-tidal rivers, streams, harbors, tidewaters, foreshores, and shores along a public beach within the town? This is something that is obligatory if we want the DCR to do the work that I've just referenced. The recommendation of the advisory committee at page 22 is consistent with the question that is stated in the article. Is there discussion? Seeing none, we come to vote. All those in favor of the recommended motion of the advisory committee under Article 2, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. We come to Article 3. Article 3 asks, and I will not read each and every one of the listed town committees, will the town receive the reports of the committees that are listed or act on anything related thereto? Now, the advisory committee and the select board have voted unanimously in support of this article, and the recommended motion is as follows: that the reports of the existing town committees and commissions that are listed and of the town historian be received, and that all of these bodies and posts of government be continued. Is there discussion? Hearing none, we come to vote on the recommended motion under Article 3. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That, too, is a unanimous vote. Article 4. Article 4 asks the following question. Will the town accept the report of the Personnel Board appointed under the classification and salary plan or act on anything related thereto? The comment sets forth the observations of the Personnel Board and the Advisory Committee, and the recommended motion is at page 23. I will abstract it. That the report of the Personnel Board on file with the Town Clerk's office be accepted. That amendments of the Personnel Board, including the classification and salary plan and any cost item agreements reached by the Personnel Board in collective bargaining, which may be embodied or referred to in that report, be approved and adopted in their entirety. Such approval and adoption to become effective July 1, 2022, or as otherwise specified in the report or the agreements. That the town raise and appropriate the sum of $364,854 for the purpose of this vote, and that the town accountant is hereby authorized and instructed to allocate said sum to and among the several personnel services and expense accounts in such amounts, respectively, as are proper and required to meet such amendments and to comply with such collective bargaining agreements as may be entered into by the Select Board on behalf of the town. Is there discussion? Hearing none, we come to vote on the recommended motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It's a unanimous vote. We now come to Article 5. Article 5 asks the following question. Will the town fix the salaries of the following town officers? Members of the Select Board, members of the Board of Assessors, the town clerk, members of the Municipal Light Board, or act on anything related thereto. The recommended motion of the Advisory Committee is set forth succinctly at the page 23 following the comment. Is there a debate? If not, we come to vote on the recommended motion of the Advisory Committee. Under Article 5, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It too is a unanimous vote. We now come to Article 6. Article 6 begins at page 24. And let me explain the procedure we will follow for Article 6 before I recognize Ms. Straley. In Article 6, the recommended motion of the Advisory Committee is set forth in the warrant booklet. It begins at page 24. The introductory portion of the motion refers to appropriations that will be for the fiscal year 2023. Now that begins on July the 1st, 2022. I now recognize Julie Straley, who serves as chair of the Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Julie Straley, 231 Levitt Street. The FY23 budget before you today is a level services budget that balances the ongoing effects of the COVID-19 pandemic with the constraints of the town's current financial resources. Here are some themes. There are increased needs in the municipal and school budgets, some still related to the pandemic. One-time only revenue sources, funds from federal stimulus and the town's unassigned fund balance, help to balance last year's FY22 and this year's FY23 budgets and won't be available next year. There will likely need to be a Proposition 2.5 operational override for next year's budget. But for now, the Advisory Committee recommends a budget that does not require an override this year. This budget was designed to use ongoing revenue to support the positions and services added in last year's budget prior to adding any additional ongoing expenses this year, and in doing so, minimizes the dollar amount of an override that will be necessary for next year's FY24 budget. That means that almost all requested additional staffing and expenses were not approved because that would increase the override amount for next year. To put this year's budget into context, we need to consider the budget that last year's town meeting approved. To address challenges of student learning loss during COVID-19 remote schooling and decreased revenue caused by the pandemic, as well as other increased needs throughout the town, that budget added 36 new full-time equivalent positions, 32 in the schools, and 4 in the municipal departments. The town did not have sufficient revenue to pay for these additions and instead relied on $5 million in one-time funds from the federal stimulus and unassigned fund balance. For this year's budget, the town still does not have sufficient operating revenue to fund these 36 positions and is once again relying on federal stimulus funds and unassigned fund balance to balance the budget. The town needs ongoing revenue sources to fund these 36 positions in future budgets and address any other staffing or service deficiencies within the town's budget. One such available revenue source would be a Proposition 2.5 operational override. Last September in 2021, the town formed a Sustainable Budget Task Force to reconcile available revenue with the level of requested services. For this year, the task force recommended the use again of one-time funds to balance the budget, with an override next year to reset town revenues. The task force believed, and the select board agreed, that the town should not seek an override to balance the FY23 budget based on several factors, including an ongoing school department strategic planning process and staffing audit, the availability of federal funds, and the limited time available to plan for an override. For this FY23 budget, the Advisory Committee juggled 3 factors. 1, the Select Board chose not to place an override before voters. 2, learning loss continues to be addressed through the additional positions and services added to last year's budget. And 3, the municipal and school departments requested additional positions and services to meet their needs. The Advisory Committee recognized the value of many of these requests. However, any additional positions and expenses added to the budget would then carry over into next year's budget, but do not have a recurring funding source. The advisory committee recognizes that an override is needed for FY24, but is also greatly concerned about the size of that override and does not want to amplify that burden by adding positions and expenses to FY23. There were two exceptions to that principle, two one-time additional expenses that don't require an ongoing revenue source. First, to purchase equipment for the new voting precinct at Linden Ponds, and second, to hire on a one-year contract basis a sustainability coordinator, a cost which will be shared with the town of Cohasset. Those two expenses together total $50,000. The advisory committee voted unanimously in support of the budget before you today, except the vote to approve the addition of those two one-time expenses was a majority, but not unanimous. Hingham is served by an exceptional and committed group of employees. Our town committees work diligently to see that employees are compensated fairly. This budget reflects an overall 8% increase in municipal employee compensation. On the non-union side, the results of the first comprehensive review of the wage and classification system in 20 years by the town's personnel board produced equity adjustments and salary adjustments for 85 permanent employees. Also, 4 of our municipal unions negotiated collective bargaining agreements that included a general wage increase and equity adjustments. These adjustments and contracts realigned compensation with the town's personnel approach to compensate just above the median of our 20 benchmark communities. The advisory committee recommends a favorable vote on the FY23 budget before you today. This budget represents a bridge year between last year's necessary and approved budget increase and the need to establish an ongoing revenue source to fund that additional spending into next year. I'd like to thank the members of the advisory committee for their hard work and commitment to the budget and the warrant article process. It's been my honor to serve alongside you this year. Thank you.
Before we proceed to the substance of Article 6, I neglected to recognize Select Board Chair Joe Fisher, as I should have, for our annual reading of the names of those town employees who have passed away since we were last together in 2021.
The town employees who have passed away since our annual town meeting of 2021. Phyllis L. Anderson, Susan Burkhardt, Elaine O. Carlson, Rosemary Eunice Cronin, George DeGrasse, Patricia A. Douglas, Walter T. Zura, Raymond Fell, Ann Dorothy Gamache, Barbara Glasheen, Stuart Greg Hall, Jr., Donald G. Jacobson, Irene Kopp, Greg Lowe, John J. Lynch, Richard McLeod, Kate Mahoney, Alan J. Massison, William J. O'Brien, Chester A. Orlowski, Laura Lee B. Pesci, Daniel Ryan, Patricia Seisman, Ronald E. Thompson, Pasquale Truglia. And we also remember and honor former members of town committees and volunteers who passed away this past year. Thank you.
Thank you. So page 24. First, I will read the introduction on 25 for the recommended motion of the advisory committee and the select board. Recommended that the town raise, appropriate, and/or transfer for each of the following purposes for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022, which is FY23, the sum of money stated therefore, provided that a one-time appropriation and transfer of fund balance in the amount of up to $3,785,882 is hereby made to balance the FY23 budget, and provided that where a transfer appropriation is stated, the amount so indicated shall be transferred or specifically appropriated as stated. Also, that the authority is hereby given to turn in vehicles and equipment and partial payment for vehicles and equipment purchased in those cases where a turn-in is stated, and provided that any amount or portion thereof appropriated to a sub-account and included in a numbered account as set forth below may be transferred to another sub-account under the same numbered account with the approval of the Select Board and the Advisory Committee. Now, what I will do is I will read the far right-hand column that has the specific appropriation that is recommended by the Advisory Committee for FY 2023. With respect to the items that are set forth under Article 6, we will, as we have for many years, read each amount to be appropriated as recommended. If a voter would like to raise a question or an objection with respect to a specific item, or if you would like to propose a higher amount or a lower amount, or no amount at all, then after I have read the item and the dollar amount, please say hold so that we'll hear you. I will then mark hold next to the item in my book. We will put the held items aside until we have completed the reading of the entire list, at which point we will take up the items that have not been held, as to which no question has been raised, and we will vote on those items together. Then we'll go back and take up any item that has been held, one by one, and allow discussion, questions, debate, and any alternative motions with regard to any of those items. Action under Article 6, the budget, will not be considered final so as to require a 2/3 vote for reconsideration or any other procedure applicable to reconsideration until all action under Article 6 has been completed. So now we'll start at page 26, and I will read the far right column. Select Board, payroll, $690,511, expenses, $164,340. Human Resources, payroll, $163,742, expenses, $3,200. Reserve Fund, $709,291. Town Accountant, payroll, $310,110. Expenses, $11,355. Audit, $75,500. Information Technology, payroll, $312,046. Expenses, $321,092. Capital outlay, $293,000 even. Assessors, payroll, $285,852. Expenses, $11,258. Consulting, $133,790. Map maintenance, $100. Treasurer Collector, payroll, $390,401. Expenses, $50,958. Tax titles, $10,000. Legal services, $395,372. Town meetings, payroll, $2,903. Expenses, $43,750. Town clerk, payroll, $190,658. Expenses, $14,583. Elections, payroll, $22,486. Expenses, $28,540. Conservation Commission, payroll, $196,884. Expenses, $37,522. Community Planning, payroll, $236,171. Expenses, $24,205. Land Use and Development, $155,919. Expenses, $73,075. Bear Cove Park, payroll, $24,132. Expenses, $9,390. Town Hall, payroll, including overtime of $12,200, $283,708. Expenses, $426,476. Capital outlay, $122,000 even. Grand Army Hall, $24,187. The Police Department, payroll, including overtime of $489,210. $6,700,439. Expenses, $486,750. Capital outlay, including $125,000 from the Municipal Waterways Fund, $738,263. Fire Department, payroll, including overtime of $610,685, $1,414,000 from ambulance receipts, $6,554,825. Expenses, $616,943. Capital outlay, $367,000 even. Dispatch services expenses, $991,420. Building commissioner payroll, $262,791. Expenses, $15,960. Animal control payroll, including overtime, of $6,853, $75,696. Expenses, $6,200. Harbor master payroll, $226,529. Expenses, $81,351. Public safety utilities emergency water, $453,251. Street lighting, $105,000 even. School department payroll, $53,713,423. Expenses, $8,113,080. Capital outlay, $883,871. DPW tree, highway, and park payroll, including overtime, of $88,995. $2,478,761. Expenses, $835,222. Capital outlay, $220,364. Snow removal, $626,738. Road maintenance, $387,000 even. Landfill recycling payroll, including overtime, of $39,355. $666,837. Expenses, $1,071,358. Capital outlay, $60,000 even. Sewer commission payroll, including overtime, of $29,249. $402,077. Expenses, $321,177. Capital outlay, $485,000. Engineering, $10,000. NWRA charges and debt service, NWRA charges rather, $2,439,758. Debt service, $70,784. Hull intermunicipal agreement, $459,241. And I note that the entire sum of $4,188,041 shall be funded by sewer revenue. Human services, the health department, the payroll, $368,201. Expenses, $18,862. Elder services, the payroll, $286,334. Expenses, $26,400. Capital outlay, $25,000 even. Veteran services, payroll, $115,194. Expenses, $70,667. Benefits, $185,348. Health imperatives, $2,700 even. South Shore Resource and Advocacy Center, $3,700 even. The library, payroll, including overtime, of $72,976. $1,770,602. Expenses, $411,134. Capital outlay, $114,000 even. The Recreation Commission, the payroll, $189,908. Expenses, $181,319. Trustees of the Bathing Beach, payroll, $27,372. Expenses, $13,300. The Historical Commission, payroll, $83,633. Expenses, $72,13. Celebrations, $17,567. Country Club, payroll, $981,815. Expenses of $910,700. Debt service of $95,500. That sum, $1,988,015, shall be funded from Country Club revenues. The Weir River Water System, the payroll, $257,380. Expenses, $6,646,630. Debt service, $5,977,432. That sum of $12,881,442 shall be funded from the Weir River Water System revenue. Debt service, $5,835,331. Group insurance, $7,071,062. OPEB, other post-employment benefits, $1,289,173. Contributory retirements, $5,837,513. Workers' comp, $330,000 even. Unemployment, $30,000. Mandatory Medicare, $1,061,995. Property and liability insurance, $1,114,464. There has been nothing held. Consequently, we would come to vote on the budget as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. It's a unanimous vote. We go to the Stabilization Fund, Article 7. Article 7 requires for adoption because of the way the law works, of a 2/3 majority of the meeting. Article 7 asks the following question. Will the town transfer a sum of money from the Stabilization Fund and/or from available reserves for the purpose of reducing the fiscal year 2023 tax rate or act on anything related thereto? Approval requires a 2/3 majority. The recommended motion is as follows. That the town transfer the sum of $178,836 from the Stabilization Fund for the purpose of paying interest on outstanding excluded debt bonds in order to reduce the need to raise these funds through the FY23 tax rate. Is there discussion on the recommended motion under 7? Hearing none, we come to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no? It's a unanimous vote. 8, disbursement of electric lighting department receipts. Will the town appropriate from the receipts of the municipal lighting plant money for the maintenance and operation of the plant for a 12-month period commencing July 1, 2022, pursuant to Sections 57 and 57A of Massachusetts General Laws 164, and provide for the disposition of any surplus receipts or act on anything related thereto? The recommended motion of the Advisory Committee and the Select Board, unanimous, is set forth at the bottom of 32, carrying over to the top of 33. Is there discussion? Hearing none, we come to vote on the recommended motion under Article 8. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Article 9. Article 9 asks, will the town limit the total amount that may be spent from the Building Department Revolving Fund established under Article 18 of the General Bylaws to $350,000 during fiscal year 2023 or act on anything relating thereto? Now, this is another one we see each year. The recommended motion of advisory is consistent with the question stated in Article 9. Is there discussion? Hearing none, we come to vote on the recommended motion under Article 9. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. 10, revolving fund for the Department of Elder Affairs, similar to the one we've just seen in 9. Will the town limit the amount that may be spent from the Elder Services Revolving Fund, established under Article 16 of the town's general bylaws, to $80,000 during fiscal 2023, or act on anything related thereto? Recommended motion is that the town limit the total amount that may be spent from the reference fund for fiscal 2023 to the $80,000. Is there discussion? Hearing none, we come to vote on the recommended motion under Article 10. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Unanimous. The recommended motion of the Advisory Committee under Article 11 was at the entrance when you came in, and I will first read the article. The article asks the following question. Will the town raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money to the town's reserve fund for use during this fiscal year, fiscal 2022, or act on anything related thereto? I will read the brief recommended motion of the Advisory Committee, and it reads as follows. That the town transfer the sum of $950,820,000, so 950,820, from available funds to the town reserve fund for use during fiscal year 2022. Is there a discussion or question? If not, we come to vote on the recommended motion of the Advisory Committee under Article 11. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Article 12, transfer harbor revenues to the Municipal Waterways Improvement and Maintenance Fund, page 34. I'll read it. Will the town vote to appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money which sum was generated from fees paid to the town of Hingham during FY 2022 from any parking license for the purpose of accessing slips or moorings, and revenues generated by the Harbor Master's Office and/or boat excise taxes for deposit to the town's Municipal Waterways Improvement and Maintenance Fund to be used in accordance with applicable Massachusetts law or anything relating thereto? The recommended motion is set forth on page 34, and I'll read it. recommended that the town vote to transfer the following sums generated from fees paid to the town of Hingham through June 30, 2022. The remaining 50% of boat excise taxes, approximately $35,000, from local receipts, any parking license fee for the purpose of accessing slips or moorings, approximately $40,000, if and when received, and all revenues generated by the Harbor Master's Office, including mooring, docking permit late fees, and boating fines, approximately $10,000, for deposit into the town's Municipal Waterways Improvement and Maintenance Fund to be used in accordance with applicable Massachusetts law. The recommendation of the Advisory Committee and the Select Board was unanimous in support of the proposed motion under this article. Is there discussion? If not, we come to vote on the recommended motion under Article 12. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Article 13, to rescind authorized but unissued debt. Will the town vote to rescind the net amount of the authorized but unissued debt for certain town capital projects, including engineering, design, studies, and/or construction, which are no longer needed for the purposes for which they were initially approved, or act on anything related thereto? You see at the top of 35 a succinct summary. The requests this year are the result of 3 conditions. Projects 1 through 8 were completed under budget before borrowing the full amount authorized. Project 9 was redesigned under a subsequent article in 2017 town meeting, and Project 10 did not proceed. So the total amount of debt to be rescinded is $6,409,671. And the unanimous recommendation of your Advisory Committee and Select Board is that the town rescind the net amount of $6,409,671, representing authorized but unissued debt for certain town capital projects. Is there discussion on the recommended motion under 13? If not, we come to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no? It's a unanimous vote. Article 14 relates to the windows at PRS. Will the town vote to authorize, raise, and authorize, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $3,993,600 to be expended under the direction of the school committee and/or the 2017 Hingham School Building Committee for a window replacement project at Plymouth River School located at 200 High Street, which would replace necessary doors, windows, and make other repairs or replacements as necessary to meet the Massachusetts School Building Authority requirements, which proposed repair project would materially extend the useful life of the school and preserve an asset that is otherwise capable of supporting the required educational program, and for which the town has applied for a school construction grant under the MSBA. The question continues. Now, the town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need, as determined by the authority, and that if the MSBA's Board of Directors votes to invite the town to collaborate with the MSBA on this proposed repair project, any project costs that the town incurs in excess of any grant that may be approved and received from the MSBA will be responsibility of the town. This requires for adoption 2/3 because it involves borrowing. So if you're on page 36, right above the recommended motion in bold, you see that it says the approval of the article requires a 2/3 vote of the meeting, and that the Advisory Committee and the Select Board voted unanimously in support of the recommended motion. The recommended motion is precisely in accord with the article which I read. Is there discussion under Article 14? I'm hearing something from the diamond to my left.
Mr. Marbury, right here.
I'm looking.
Right here.
Microphone 4, I'm sorry.
Ed
Mr.
Johnson,
Right.
108 Watt Street. In the early 1980s, I was on the Energy Conservation Committee for the town, and we audited all the school buildings and town buildings. At that time, our recommendation for the Plymouth River School was to replace the windows. Now, they're only probably 15, 20 years old at that point. I'm glad in my lifetime I'm going to see the windows replaced. Thank you.
We too are glad, Mr. Johnson. I'm not sure what that might cause you to conclude going forward, but the project will take some time, so. Are there any other comments or reminiscences on PRS? Hearing none, we come to vote. All those in favor of the recommended motion under Article 14, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No? Unanimous. Article 15. Article 15 relates to transfer of borrowed but unspent funds from completed capital projects. It asks you the following question. Will the town vote to transfer an amount of funds from the remaining unspent funds of certain capital projects, which funds were previously appropriated and raised by borrowing under the following votes of the town? And they're listed there: Foster School, Middle School, MSBA project, and high school windows. As such, remaining unspent funds are no longer needed to complete the capital projects for which they were originally borrowed, and shall now be transferred hereunder to help pay the cost of a new capital project approved under Article 23 of the 2021 annual town meeting, the PRS window project, all as authorized by applicable Massachusetts law or act on anything related thereto. The advisory committee and the select board voted unanimously in favor of the article, and I'll read it. It is recommended that the town transfer $1,101,791.28 of unspent funds of certain capital projects, which funds were previously appropriated and raised by borrowing by the town. And those are the four: Foster School, Middle School Addition, Middle School MSBA project, and the high school window project. As such, remaining unspent funds are no longer needed to complete the capital project for which they were originally borrowed, and shall now be transferred hereunder to help pay the costs of a new capital project approved under Article 23 of the 21 annual town meeting, PRS window project, all as authorized by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 20. Is there discussion under the recommended motion under 15? Hearing none, we come to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no? That is a unanimous vote. 16, will the town vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to be expended by the select board to be used to pay for certain capital equipment and projects, including but not limited to a fire engine, fire station repairs, and/or other town of Hingham capital equipment or projects, or act on anything related thereto? Now, I will abstract rather quickly the comment, so I think it's helpful to the meeting. Comment: this article seeks to transfer from available funds a sum of up to $2,230,000 for 5 large capital needs of the fire department. These include a new replacement fire engine pumper, the replacement of the roofs at fire stations 1 and 3, the replacement of the HVAC system at Station 1, and the replacement of the gutters, trim, and portico at Station 1. And then they're detailed in your warrant booklet. The fire engine pumper, the replacement of the roof at Station 1, which is the central fire station, the replacement of the roof at Station 3, that's Tarrant Fire Station in South Hingham, and the HVAC system at Station 1, which again is central. And then replacement of gutters, trim, and portico at Station 1. The advisory committee has recommended, as has the select board, unanimously in support of this article, and I'll read the recommendation, which is on 39 at the center. Recommendation that the town vote to appropriate from available funds up to $2,230,000 to be expended by the select board to pay for a new replacement fire engine pumper, the replacement of roofs at Stations 1 and 3, the replacement of the HVAC system at Station 1, and the replacement of the gutters, trim, and portico also at Station 1. Is there discussion on the recommended motion under Article 16? Yes, this is all right.
Hi, Liza O'Reilly, 19 Porters Cove Road. This comment mentions numerous items in the construction of the fire station that were done incorrectly or need to be repaired. And I'm wondering who will manage this project of these repairs. Will it be a town employee that has construction experience, or will there be a committee established, such has been done for school building committees and the public safety committee, that have representatives that are experienced with construction management, so that we can avoid any of the issues that are itemized in this comment?
Thank you, Ms. O'Reilly. Daveline Cooper from the Advisory Committee.
Yes, as the comment notes, this was one of the concerns of the advisory committee, that some of this work has been done before. In terms of the supervision of it, as the project moves forward, there are town employees who might be involved in the supervision, the town engineer, J.R. Fry, and also the deputy fire chief who has construction experience. But as the project develops, if there is need for a project manager, that's exactly where we will go. The public safety facility is a totally separate process and project, so that has no relationship to this.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Are there additional questions or comments? Yes. Remember to identify yourself, please.
My name is Hillary Hosmer, 204 Linden Ponds Way. When you're replacing roofs, and there are 3 to be replaced in this article, that's the time to consider solar panels and updating for climate purposes. I didn't see any mention of what kind of roofs other than slate. Are solar panels being considered for the fire station?
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. If there's enough detail currently available to answer that question.
Daveline Cooper, I forgot to give my address before, 1404 Tucker's Lane. At this point, the slate roof, there are issues around the fire department, the central office, because it is it's governed by the Historic Districts Commission. But in point of fact, there will be as much work as can be done to make it as green as possible. But at this point, there's not a detailed list of exactly what the roof would look like.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? If not, we come to vote on the recommendation under Article 16. It requires for adoption a simple majority. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. That's a unanimous vote. We now come to Article 17. Article 17 is the CPC article. If you just give me a moment to... Now, the CPC article, some years ago, we started doing in a fashion similar to Article 6, the budget article, to basically take up the projects. I'll read the projects. If you want to put a hold on a project, you do so. There are fewer projects this year than in some years, but we do have 4. So I will read them. And then if there is a time at which you want to hold a project, you can call out hold, and I'll mark it in my book. Now, the 4th project under Article 17, take a moment to look at it, you'll see that the 4th recommendation is to appropriate a sum of money of $550,000, and it relates to basically the pool proposal that is under 18. And for the efficient discussion of Article 17, subsection 4, what we're going to do is if a hold were to be placed on 4, we'll discuss it along with 18. And I'll explain more if and when that happens. So Article 17, I'll read each amount that is proposed to be appropriated, and if you want to hold something, you'll call out hold. So it asks the following. Will the town appropriate and or borrow or set aside for later spending funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee, the CPC, as follows? 1, appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $20,000 from the Community Preservation General Fund to be used for by the CPC for strike, it doesn't say general, sorry, for administrative purposes. 2, to appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $166,840 from the CPC General Fund to be used by South Shore Habitat for Humanity to create 2 new affordable single-family homes at 302 and 304 Whiting Street, Hingham. 3, to appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $289,815 from the Community Preservation General Fund to be used by the Hingham Recreation Commission to reconstruct the hockey court at Cronin Field. 4, to appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $550,000 from the Community Preservation General Fund to be used by the Country Club Management Committee for construction of a new pool complex at South Shore Country Club. Also, I'll mark hold on item 4. The previous 3 not having been held, we now come to vote on 1, 2, and 3. Now remember, as with Article 6, that will not be a final vote on anything under Article 17, but will basically tentatively dispose of 1, 2, and 3. So all those in favor of the recommendations of CPC and the Advisory Committee on 1, 2, and 3, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed on 1, 2, and 3? So the ayes have it on 1, 2, and 3. And we're now going to go to 18. We'll come back to 17.4 because it integrally relates to 18. Give me a second. Article 18. Article 18 starts at 42, and it asks the following question. Will the town vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the design and construction of a new pool at the South Shore Country Club, or act on anything relating thereto? Comment. The article would authorize the town to borrow up to $8 million to finance the construction and any remaining design of a swimming pool facility to replace the now defunct outdoor town pool located at the South Shore Country Club. Now over onto page 43, the second full paragraph. The town plans to finance the project through borrowing outside the operating budget as excluded debt. As such, state law requires the project get approval, both from a 2/3 majority of the 2022 annual town meeting, this body, and a majority approval on the ballot at the town election, which will be held after the annual town meeting, as I mentioned earlier, on May the 14th. If approved, the associated debt service, assuming a 20-year borrowing with level payments, would result in excluded debt as shown in the comment. If you move over to page 44, it says approval of this article will require a 2/3 vote of town meeting and subsequently an affirmative vote at the local election. The advisory committee and the select board voted unanimously in support of the article. I will now read the recommended motion. Recommended that the town vote to appropriate an amount not to exceed $8 million for the design and construction of a new pool at the South Shore Country Club. To meet said appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said sum under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. And further provided that the appropriation hereunder shall be subject to and contingent upon an affirmative vote of the town to exempt the amounts required for the payment of interest and principal on said borrowing from the limitation on taxes imposed by Massachusetts General Laws 59, Section 21C, Proposition 2.5. So that is what is before you. And just to remind you, we still have a hold on 17.4, and you'll recall that 17.4 requires for its passage of 18. So we have a representative of the Country Club Management Committee to advance its article under 18. Mr. Kay?
Good afternoon. My name is George Kay, and I live at 14 Gulfview Drive. I'm an abutter to the golf course, and I've been a resident in Hingham since 1979. I was recently appointed to this past year to the 5-member Country Club Management Committee to serve with Christine Smith, Sue Sullivan, Steve White, and Jack Bailey. For those of you who've been around for a while, you may remember that I was also appointed to the original Country Club Development Committee, which assisted the town in the eminent domain taking of the country club in 1988 and the resulting reconstruction of the golf course and facilities. I served on that initial committee for 8 years. The current 160-plus acre facility includes the golf course, pro shop, driving range, simulator room, maintenance facility, locker rooms, bowling alley, restaurant, banquet facilities, tennis courts, and the swimming pool, which was closed in 2019 due to structural and safety issues. The retired pool provided thousands of Hingham residents and children with swimming lessons, as well as a respite for many residents on a hot summer day for over 30 years. The facility operates under an enterprise fund, as you heard. User fee revenues cover the operating expense and capital improvements of the facility. The golf course continues to be the primary revenue driver. The facility has an executive director, Kevin Whalen, who manages the daily operations of the complex along with the oversight of the CCMC, and the complex continues to operate profitably. The design of the new pool has gone through several changes over the past years in an effort to reduce the cost as well as to meet the many needs of the community as possible. Rick Pomeroy from Pomeroy Associates was chosen as the project manager in 2020, and Chris Roddy, who's here today, from RMD Collaborative LLC, was chosen as the design architect of the pool. The new seasonal pool complex is planned to be constructed in the location of the current tennis courts. It will include a zero-entry pool for younger children, a 6-lane lap pool, a splash deck, as well as a bathhouse with restrooms, shower facilities, locker room, training room, concession stand, equipment storage, and a filtration building. The pools and splash deck will have 3 separate high-efficiency filtration systems. The facility will be ADA compliant and meets current net zero principles. The new pool complex will be about 1/3 larger than the old pool and can accommodate up to 350 people. The design infrastructure of the pool is such that it can accommodate a bubble for year-round use if and when the town should decide to act upon that option. However, we emphasize that this article is for a seasonal pool only. The CCMC and Recreation Department has had considerable experience running a seasonal pool program, and we feel confident that it will operate at a break-even or slight profit, will not incur any expense to the town's operating budget. We've carefully reviewed the parking requirements and have plans for additional overflow parking on the field next to the new maintenance building if it is needed. We also have picked up extra parking spaces from the old pool location. This construction project is beyond the means of the enterprise fund, which is why the article asks for the town to borrow up to $8 million to cover the cost of developing the facility. The Community Preservation Committee has pledged $550,000 to help defray the cost. This is a debt exclusion and is outside of the town's operating budget, and it is estimated that it will result in approximately a $46 temporary annual tax increase throughout the life of the bond on the average Hingham home. If the town approves this article and it passes at the subsequent town election, we believe the pool can open sometime in July of 2023. We believe that bringing back this new seasonal pool complex will serve many Hingham residents of all ages and will add one more important amenity to our community. We ask that you please support this article with an affirmative vote. Thank you.
Is there further discussion from a voter or a member of the advisory committee? Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. David Anderson, 31 Old Colony Road, speaking on behalf of the unanimous advisory committee in support of this article. The 2020 annual town meeting unanimously approved a $500,000 grant from the Community Preservation Committee to for design and construction plans to replace the defunct pool at South Shore Country Club. Before you today is the result of that work, a request for up to $8 million to finance construction of a new pool facility that is consistent with the 2020 town meeting request. The scope and design of the facility has been extensively researched over several years by the Country Club Management Committee and outside experts with input from Hingham residents. The proposed design seeks to address changes in typical public pool amenities since the defunct Country Club pool was last upgraded in the 1980s. The proposed design also provides the town with the ability to pursue year-round swimming access in the future by cost-effectively incorporating certain critical year-round infrastructure during the initial construction. The potential for year-round use was a component of the 2020 town meeting approval. While some advisory committee members initially questioned the merit of these infrastructure investments at a cost of roughly $700,000, ultimately all advisory committee members supported this design, given that retrofitting a summer-only seasonal pool facility for year-round use would be prohibitively expensive, according to the outside design experts. As was mentioned, this article does not include the capital expense of a bubble that would enclose the pool to permit year-round use. If the Country Club decided to pursue year-round use in the future, it would need to identify a funding source for this additional investment. The Country Club anticipates operating the seasonal pool at break-even or better, as it did with the previous pool, so there is no anticipated budget impact from the pool as proposed today. However, should the Country Club pursue year-round operation, it will have to prepare a budget to do so, and that budget, like all town budgets, will require annual town meeting approval. In sum, today's vote does not authorize or fund operation of a seasonal year-round pool facility. Rather, it cost-effectively provides for some of the necessary infrastructure to do so in the future, should the town so choose. Given that the last pool was initially constructed nearly 75 years ago, we find significant value in this flexibility. As was mentioned, the town plans to finance the capital cost of this project through a borrowing outside of the operating budget. As such, state law requires the project get approval from 2/3 majority of all of us here today, and a majority approval on the ballot on May 14th in the town election. If approved, the associated debt service, assuming a 20-year borrowing with level payments, would result in a property tax increase of roughly $46 per year, or roughly $4 per month for the medium assessed value home. Finally, the advisory committee received comments from certain abutters about the project. To the extent those comments related to potential noise or visual impacts or parking concerns, please know that the concerns will be thoroughly addressed through the typical town permitting and approval process this project must go through. I and all of my colleagues on the advisory committee encourage you to vote in favor of this article. Thank you.
Mr. Watson,
I rise very much in
could
support.
you please identify yourself, sir?
Excuse me, James R. Watson, formerly 291 Rockland Street, now Linden Ponds Way. I'm very much in favor of the pool and very much disappointed to get a sense that the bubble that we've heard about for the last several years, like many bubbles, is floating away. We aren't going to have a bubble in the near future. And I think if we're going to build the pool, and if it's most economical to include the bubble, not just infrastructure, but the actual construction, that really should be done before we go any farther. Because otherwise, it's a 2/3 of a loaf. Good in the summer, no good in the winter. And I've been staying at Linden Ponds, and there we have a year-round pool, and people use it year-round. So let's give the town the same opportunity. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Yes, Mr. Seeland.
Thank you. My name is Phil Bamus. I'm at 6 Colonial Road.
Speak up, sir.
I'm Phil Bamus at 6 Colonial Road in
Thank you.
Hingham. My question is about the additional $700,000 to ready the pool for the bubble. I support the idea of the pool and have used the old pool with my son in the past. However, given that this is going to increase taxes, only by a little, granted, and given that we are looking at a Proposition 2.5 override for the coming year, in order to make ends meet around essential services, I question whether we need to spend $700,000 this year to ready the construction for a bubble that may or may not occur, and that may or may not be cost effective when it does. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Yes, back by 5.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Larry Lidner, 22 Water Street. 2 years ago, as chair of the Community Preservation Committee, I urged everyone at town meeting to vote $500,000 of CPC funds for design and construction documents for a new pool. Today, still as CPC chair, I'm urging you to vote down this pool complex. 4 of the 9 members of our committee had serious reservations. We 4 came up to 550 for much lower numbers to vote with one other person's 550, a little more than half of the asks, and reach some kind of consensus. We supported the concept of a pool. Our thoughts on the extravagant complex you are to vote on today were much more nuanced and circumspect. Some of my own thoughts on why this pool complex is not right for Hingham. In no way does it resemble the project you voted to have designed with your money. The warrant article for the project you voted on in 2020 said, and I quote, "This grant would fund design and construction documents for a replacement 8-lane, 25-yard outdoor town pool with a zero-depth entry for children and those with special needs, a splash pad, and locker rooms. Instead, there are now 2 pools on the table, and not just locker rooms, but a bathhouse with 2/3 of its square footage set aside for other uses, a vast lobby, a conference room, and so on. The current estimate for the bathhouse alone is $2.7 million. When Belmont was deciding on a new pool, the design and construction team for that town was tasked with holding a series of public meetings so people could see 3 different plans and weigh in on the one they thought was the best. Once our country club decided to change the plan we had voted $500,000 of our money on, we should have been notified and given options to choose from. When you want to deviate from what you promised to people in exchange for their money, you owe them that. On cost, when the country club handed CPC its final application for the pool project back in October, they told our committee that the cost would be $7.3 million. By January, 3 months later, the cost had gone up $600,000 to $7.9 million. I think the final cost will actually be more in the neighborhood of $11 million. In the next article from now in today's warrant, you will be asked to vote $815,000 in additional funds to build a maintenance facility at the country club. What the warrant does not say is that in 2020, you already voted $2.2 million for this facility. A comment in your warrant says the upcharge is due to supply chain and inflation issues. I know the pandemic made things difficult, but 37%? The pool project would be much more complex to construct than the maintenance facility. It will involve blasting, as I understand it. If you add 37% to that cost, like adding 37% to the cost of the maintenance facility, it puts us just under $11 million. Pool construction is estimated at $46 a year per household if your house is worth $700,000, more if it's valued higher. But that doesn't include the cost of membership or a day pass that you will be required to purchase if you actually want to use the pool. And the one-day cost per person could easily be as high as $10 or $15 or more, especially once the bubble is put on. And the bubble will be put on. You are not voting for a seasonal pool today, no matter what you hear. You are voting for a year-round facility. You're not being asked to pay for all this bubble infrastructure, so it won't be pushed for hard. This is where we get into long-term costs. Year-round pools don't earn out the way seasonal pools do. They run at a deficit every single year. For instance, Duxbury's year-round pool runs at a deficit of about $300,000 a year, which the taxpayers pick up the tab for. You will be told today that every year you will have the chance to vote down keeping the pool open year-round once it has a bubble, because it will be a line item in the budget at town meeting, and that's true, but it's not the way things really work. Once the bubble is installed, the ball will already have rolled down the hill. For all 6 years I've been on CPC, people have complained that the committee doesn't vote more money for affordable housing. And here we are at this ironic juncture, voting on an extravagant project that will not be affordable for many of those in affordable housing, and debt that will run into 6 figures every year once it goes year-round. You cannot be for this pool complex and affordable housing at the same time. It's not an equalizer, even though that's a buzzword that has been used by proponents of this project. If you want to equalize, add another $300,000 to the annual budget for housing. At a future meeting, soon, you will be asked to spend more of your money on a new safety building and presumably a new foster school. And then there's a new senior center, not even on the table yet. Through all this, I predict the country club will be back for a couple of more million when the first $8 million for pool construction runs out. And they'll be back for more money to demolish the old pool. You're going to hear today that the country club has been at this since 2016 and that it's time to move on it. But the delay is theirs. They keep changing the plan. You can see this yourself if you look at town warrants dating back several years. I say, let's take another year and get it right, because wrong will last for 70 years. I'm voting no on this pool complex. Thank you.
Further discussion, microphone 4. That's you, Tufts, Jumbo.
Hi, I'm Russ Shute. I live at 438 Gardner Street. My question is, if we build the pool so that it could accept the bubble, how long does the town have to actually attach the bubble? My worry is that either the building code will change or the technology will change, and it'll end up that we won't be able to attach the bubble anyway.
Thanks. Is there someone from the Country Club Management Committee, perhaps? Yes. Go ahead.
Christine Smith, 2 Park Circle, Chair of the Country Club Management Committee. Lots to unpack here, so I'll see if I can do it in 6 minutes. The first gentleman whose question was about spending the additional $700,000 to make it bubble ready. About a little over $200,000 of that $700,000 is actually part of sustainability. Much higher efficiency pumps, UV to deal with the water. It's not just $700,000 for bubbleability, it's over $200,000 for sustainability. And we've actually worked quite closely with our net zero partners to take a look at that budget. So the rest of that budget is for things like a more expansive pool deck, because if you think about it, eventually if we do bubble a facility, there has to be a place for the snow to fall. So even if it didn't become bubbleable, we have a much larger pool deck. The construction, and we do have Chris Roddy here, our architect, if anyone would like further clarification, but if you think about it, what we're building is a pool, which is sort of a building in the ground, and we don't anticipate any explosives because we are actually going to be filling it. If you think about the country club, the topography, if you go to the top where the tennis court is, there's a lower lot and there's an upper lot. We're actually going to fill it up to make it level with the upper parking lot so that we can just dig the pool in, and we don't anticipate doing any blasting. So that information was incorrect. And as part of that, there'll be a pool, and then you sort of build another structure around the pool, which is the structure to hold a bubble should that eventually take place. And we were also advised by our team that to do it any other way, if you decided eventually you wanted to bubble the pool, you'd have to rip that up all over again. So that doesn't make any sense. And just to be clear, I know Mr. Linder had mentioned we've been working on this since 2016. I was actually going through all my old files, and I did this last year at town meeting. I actually have a feasibility report from 2005 that dealt with putting a hockey rink up at that place. So this is a site that has been looked at time and time again. master planning. I think any good master plan, you've got to be fluid, and I think we've been very fluid. I got involved in this project back in 2016 when it was supposed to be an indoor-outdoor facility that was a much, much bigger complex that we're talking about today. Indoor-outdoor pool. In today's dollars, it probably would have cost over $20 million. And that came from a $75,000 feasibility study that was done. A full town survey with about 1,500 people answered it quickly in less than 2 weeks. And the majority of those people wanted a pool that they had the ability to practice and swim in year-round. This is a flexible plan. I keep saying we need to thread the needle. We have been through the CPC process many times since 2017. $75,000 was granted for the feasibility study. We listened to the feasibility study. In 2020, they were nice enough to grant us $500,000 to now redesign the pool because the one that we originally anticipated, it just didn't work for a variety of reasons. With a new executive director who, Kevin Whalen, he actually ran the DCR pools, 34 pools for 12 years. Kevin is a pool expert, and we have definitely benefited from his expertise, as well as that of Chris Roddy and Taylor McDonald from Pomeroy and Associates. Mr. Linder also mentioned the maintenance facility. That building is actually being paid for by the enterprise fund. It's not being paid for by the taxpayer. And our enterprise fund at the country club, that is now, we're profitable about $400,000 a year. It's been a really nice asset for the town. The cost maintenance that Mr. Linder also mentioned back in the fall, it did come in at $7.3 million, but part of our team is we actually have a professional cost estimator, as it does other projects in town, Foster School, Police and Fire. It was professionally cost estimated. That's why it went up, and I was glad that it went up, because I don't want to bring forth a project to town meeting that I've personally been working on since 2016 that's going to come in at $11 million when we've got professionals that tell us we should be able to do it for $8 million. In terms of cash flow and services, the country club pool, the town pool, it always operated that it was a membership, a family membership. Back in 2019, the last time it was open, was $375 for a family. You paid for swimming lessons, you paid a drop-in rate. It's always been like that. Hingham Rec, if you want to take an aerobics class, you pay for that. It's a service. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way we hope that it will continue to be for a seasonal pool. The reason we're not initially opening this up as a bubbleable pool is we just need to get it open. This town has had a pool for 70 years, the last 30 of which have been a town pool. George Kay being on the original committee, it was so nice to have him back. This benefits everybody. This is a shovel-ready project. Hingham's got some infrastructure that we need to invest in. This is the one project, we say it's cradle to grave. It's going to be zero depth entry. We can have senior citizen swimming lessons. We can have all types of varieties of programming. And we do that in conjunction with Hingham Rec, the way we have for a number of years. To address sort of the grandness of the pool.
You have 1 minute.
This pool is only actually about a third more capacity than we originally had. 2 pools, it's the same water. It's 220,000 gallons plus. It's really just a pool with a wall down the middle of it. It's the same filtration. It's the same gallons of pool. It's the same bather load, and it's an equalizer. It's shovel ready. We are ready to go. We've been studying this since 2016. Any further delay, we're not going to have a pool for a couple more years. Specifically, if you look at the other capital projects coming down the pike, this is the time we can put the shovel in the ground this summer, and hopefully we can all be swimming by next year. I urge you, please vote yes on this article to build a new town pool. Bring back a town pool. Thank you.
Thank you. No cheering, please, please. Come on. I recognize the voter at number 5, and then back to 4.
My name's Eleanor Kaplowski. I live in 14 Whiting Lane. The town has a lot of building to do, the new fire and police station that we need, the new foster school that we need, and a new pool that we want. When we've got a budget, we get what we need, not what we want. There's a lot of money at stake here for something you want and that you don't really need.
Thank you. Gentleman at 3.
Nat Stillman, 205 Tucker's Lane, Linden Ponds, and thanks for all the chairs. I'd like to speak strongly in favor of this project. The reason I rose was to ask how much it would cost for a family membership. Currently, to swim with my grandson year-round, I have to go to the Weymouth Club, and I rose to ask what the family membership would be, and I just heard it, and that's why I'm voting yes.
Thank you, sir. Back to 4, and gentleman with the tough shirt on, you've spoken already, so I'll recognize you, but for only 3 minutes.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering if the architect could try and answer that technical question about how long the work to make it bubble ready would allow us to still be able to bubble it. I am concerned that with a lot of outlays the town's planning on doing, that the bubbling could get kicked down the road for a while, and then we come back and we can't do it, or we got to spend a lot of money to do it. So I guess I just like a more
Thank you.
technical
I
answer if
understand the
that's
question,
possible.
and for economy, we have Chris Roddy somewhere in the guest section. Now, Mr. Roddy is the architect for the facility that is proposed. He is not, however, a resident of the town of Hingham. So for him to present his comments to you, it requires your permission. So all those in favor of hearing Chris Roddy address the meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? No. The ayes have it. Mr. Roddy, if you can come forward expeditiously, please. And why don't you come to the center? People can meet you visually, at least. Just identify yourself, where you live, and
Sure. My name's Chris Roddy from Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts. It's a very good question, but I would like to say that all of the components that are being designed into the project in relation to the bubble are not things that over time become obsolete. Things like the concrete foundation that can get used effectively, for decades. The items that would otherwise possibly be changed with time won't actually be designed until the town decides to go ahead with the bubble. Things like the equipment that runs the bubble itself. Over time, that equipment will continue to become more and more efficient. Utilize different types of energy. So that's why we're not, those items are not part of the project. So everything that's in the project now can go out decades before anything would need to be done, and nothing would really need to kind of be redesigned or redone with what's going into the project right now. Does that answer the question?
Thank you. You resume your seat. Thank you. The voter at microphone 4.
Kelly Smallcomb, 18 Delpret Drive. I support rebuilding our pool, but I do not support the proposed plans for this project. The warrant we have in front of us is confusing. It asks us to vote on an $8 million loan to replace our seasonal town pool. However, the design and plans are anything but a seasonal pool. They are full of wasteful costs and features to turn the pool into a bubble facility for year-round indoor swimming that I believe makes this project a very poor investment for the town. Here are 5 elements of the plans that I feel are not in our best interest. Number 1, the high cost to make this pool bubble ready, even if we never put up the bubble. The country club has said that roughly $800,000 of the $8 million asked is to prepare the area for a future bubble. But in reality, the costs are much higher. We don't need a $3 million bathhouse with conference space and heating if we are not going to put a bubble on it. Even in the winter, I question the need for conference space. Number 2, the high cost to operate the pool if we do put a bubble on it. Indoor pools run at a high deficit. They accrue significant financial losses every year. Nearby indoor pools cost at least $300,000 to $400,000 per year. Birthday parties and swim team fees will not cover that cost. These costs will absolutely compete in the down budget with other vital needs like teacher salaries, special education, safety, and upkeep of town property. Earlier today, I heard the advisory committee chair mention we need new revenue sources. This is not a revenue source. This is the opposite. Number 3, bubbled pools are known to have poor air quality. They require a continuous flow of air to keep it inflated while exhausting very little. Ventilation is a challenge. I think people will continue to swim in other fully indoor pools nearby. The Canal Pool is only 10 minutes from South Shore Country Club, and you can see, and solid structure pools have far better air quality than bubbled pools. Number 4, the demolition of the former pool is not included in the scope of this project. The country club will be back in front of us at some point asking for more money and to repurpose that land. As you can see, we don't know the full cost of this project that we are asking to vote on today. Number 5, the next warrant includes additional funds the country club is asking for to finish a $3 million garage for their equipment. We are pouring a lot of money into the country club. We should be more discerning about what parts of the country club plans we choose to fund. I'll conclude by pointing out that our past seasonal pool broke even financially and did not compete with other town needs for funding. Today we are facing over $300 in tax increases and much more in the fall. We need to build our pool sensibly. Lastly, we would never get another vote on whether this seasonal pool transitions to year-round use. Today is our only opportunity to prevent this costly, wasteful project. As I said earlier, I do support rebuilding our town pool, and I think it's unfortunate that we couldn't have been presented today with 2 options, a modest seasonal pool and a year-round option. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize the voter at 5.
Hi, Stephanie Jones, 20 Del Pret Drive. As an abutter, my family enjoyed and appreciated the town pool for many years and hope to continue to do so. But I will not approve the proposal being voted on today. We have been invested in learning as much as possible about the process for this pool. Over the past year, I have found that the design and costs of this project have been continually shifting, and that the message to the public has not been clear. There are a few specific points that I'd like to comment on. The design being presented to us today includes significant costs for the infrastructure to put a bubble on the pool in the future. And there is clear intent that this will happen. One point that it took me some time to figure out, and that I'd like to emphasize, is the following. While the bubble itself is not part of the vote today, a yes vote today is a yes vote approving a future bubble. If private funds are raised to purchase the bubble, it will have to pass through the planning board, but there will not need to be another town vote to put the bubble up. Rather, we will vote on paying for the year-round operational costs, estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. As previously stated, these operational costs will be a single line item in the overall town budget that will compete with other resources. And someone would need to object to the single pool line item in the overall budget each and every year. It's doubtful that this will ever happen. The design and construction costs in the proposal we are voting on were based on a bubble that would be inflated and heated with gas.
Upon closer look from Hingham Net Zero Committee, it was deemed that this would not meet our community net zero goals. In a recent public Hingham Anchor article put out by the Net Zero Committee just this last Friday, April 22nd, it stated that, quote, originally, the Country Club Committee had planned to install a gas line as part of the construction authorized by this town meeting. It would be efficient to install it in the first round of construction, but it would not actually be needed unless or until a future town meeting authorizes construction of a bubble over the pool. At the request of Hingham Net Zero, the Country Club Committee has agreed not to connect to gas during this phase of construction, end quote. I have a few points of confusion and concern with this statement. First, the statement that until a future town meeting authorized construction of a bubble over the pool is misleading. To my knowledge, this is the town meeting at which we are authorizing construction, if in fact private funds are raised for the bubble itself and the planning board approves it. Second, what does it mean that the Country Club Committee has agreed not to connect to gas during this phase of construction? Does that mean the gas line will not be constructed? Or will we pay to construct a gas line, but it will not be connected and will never be used? It sounds to me like it will be put in, but not used. In the last version of the budget that I saw during an advisory committee meeting on February 2nd, the cost for the utility company charges is estimated at about $75,000. Are we wasting this amount of money? Or if the gas line isn't put in, where might this money go? Clearly, this late change in the plan is representative of poor planning and a lack of clarity of the total cost of this project. In regard to the $2.7 million bathhouse, my understanding is that significant costs are included to make it year-round, and the plan includes a large lobby and conference rooms. What has not been made clear to me is if this bathhouse is being constructed with the possibility that it may be open year-round, even if the pool isn't.
You have 1 minute.
Is this a possibility? If so, will the town be online to pay for the heating and maintenance costs of this new year-round facility? In regard to the pools, the plan is for 2 pools, which has been stated did not match what the 2020 warrant said it would design. It will be 1 zero-entry pool and 1 6-lane lap pool. The warrant states that the 2-pool design was, quote, necessitated by factors such as the different water temperatures required for lap swimming versus swim lessons, end quote. To my understanding, this suggests the lap pool will be kept cooler, a requirement for swim team use in winter months, and will also be needed to
Your time has expired.
Okay, thank you.
I'll recognize the voter at 3, then come back to 2, then 4.
Hi, I'm Marcus Neefsey, 133 Chief Justice Cushing Highway.
Having trouble hearing you, sir.
Sorry, Marcus Neefsey, 133 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. I'm a parent and a local pediatrician, and today I've heard a lot about this bubble and a lot about finances, but I'd also like to bring up the aspect of swim lessons and safety for our children. We live in Massachusetts. There are a lot of ponds. We are ocean abundant. We're gonna have people swim in the ocean. We need to take it on our town to teach our children how to swim. A lot of the swim lessons have been suggested to go out of town. They go to private facilities. For those of you without young children, it's about $30 plus per half hour of swim lessons. Not ability to have any time with the parent alone to teach their children how to swim. I've personally seen the consequences of people who don't know how to swim, who live in Massachusetts with all of our ponds, and it's devastating. I think it's our responsibility
to raise our children, to be safe, and this is a need to teach our children.
Thank you, sir. Voter at 2.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Judy Sneath. I live at 89 North Street. I am the Planning Board representative to the Community Preservation Committee and part of the minority of 4 who voted for more funding for the pool project. I have to emphasize here that all 9 members of the CPC spoke enthusiastically of their support for a town pool. No one on the CPC voted against the pool, not even our chair. I've been on the planning board since 2006 and have seen in this short time the significant growth in town. We now have more affordable housing and also more luxury housing. We have a lot more private swimming pools. As a town, we voice a desire for our seniors to be able to afford to stay in their homes, for our teachers and firefighters to be able to afford to live in this town, and we voice a desire to welcome families of a range of socioeconomic levels and to support one another in the lives that we live here. The town pool is emblematic of our desires, a place where residents of all types gather. The town pool helps us build social capital like few other assets. In a coastal town, as our resident pediatrician just mentioned, should all youngsters learn how to swim? On Facebook, I see frequently people hiring private instructors to come to their homes to teach their kids how to swim. It's a luxury that not everybody can afford. In an extremely affluent town, will we start to live separate lives? Or will we gather together with our kids, with our families, with our seniors? Will we invest in our common good? I say yes. Lest we lose sight of what truly matters in our shared lives. Right now, we're sitting on a turf field with lights. I was chair of the planning board when this field was approved. And I can tell you it sounded a lot like this conversation here today. There were people who thought we were going to hell in a handbasket because we were putting turf down and putting up lights, and there were others who felt their children couldn't live without it. When the project came to the planning board, we spent, I don't know, you might remember better than I, maybe 6 months of hearings, of extreme, vigorous conversation about this project. There were permits issued with long lists of conditions about operating hours, noise, light, you name it. A year later, we had a look back, and there was not one complaint from an abutter. So I have faith that we as a town can do what's right for this town, what's good for the common good in this town, and we can do it extremely well. Finally, I'd really like to thank the South Shore Country Club Committee that has spent all these years on this, and thank Kevin Whalen, who, how could we get so lucky to have a pool expert in charge of our country club? So when we talk about, you know, this costs too much or that should be here, I have tremendous faith in the people who have spent 6 years researching this, along with someone who has professional experience in this and has hired a group of professionals to advise them on this. So the purchase of this club itself, as we also heard earlier, was just a gift to this town. And it makes me sort of long for our late friend, John Riley, who was so behind the purchase of the country club. We have to continue to invest in all of our infrastructure, and this really is vital to the sense of community that we enjoy and are so blessed to have in this town. So please vote yes.
Thank you. As I continue to recognize some voters, I do ask that you focus your comments on things that have not yet been presented to the meeting. Number 4.
Good afternoon. Tom Hoffman, 3 Sherman Way. I live about a mile from the pool, so I'm not in a butter. I've lived in town for 35 years, and I've watched over the years town meeting that most people come here with their minds already made up. So I'm sure I'm not going to change any of your minds. But just reflect on the fact, what was the last time you walked into a hospital, a college or university campus, or an airport, and you didn't see major repairs or new construction going on?
We have 5 schools in this town, a fire department, 3 fire department buildings, police station, and other public facilities. And the bottom line is, we've kicked the can down the road a bunch of times. And that's why we end up having to make all these expenses and improve the infrastructure. It's part of having a great community. And what I don't want to see is what went on with the traffic light that took 18 years to go on Main Street. How'd that turn out? How about the battle we had for the Hingham Nursery School relocation? How about the train? But the one I love the best is this turf field. For 19 years, I was on the group that tried to get this facility built. It got built when my kids were all off in college. And here's the best part, where we've had 3 consecutive town meetings on this field. But 10% of the people voted against it. If you go back to the vote then, 90 to 10. My kids are all up and out. Nobody in our family is going to use this pool. But Judy stole my thunder. Thank you, Judy. I totally agree with you. We have to do things for the common good. So I fully support. There's a lot of smart people involved in designing and building, and they're all ears on this pool and all the other facilities we're going to do. So let's move forward. I say vote yes.
Thank you. I'll recognize the voter at number 5.
Thank you. Chris Jones, 20 Del Pret Drive. I am an abutter to the country club. Let me start by saying our families always enjoyed the country club. Our kids were on the summer swim team, our neighbors, and we spent many days enjoying it. As an abutter, this is what drove my initial interest in the project. After attending a number of abutters meetings and town and public committee meetings, the more I learned, the more questions and concerns I had, not only related to the project budget, future tax burden, but also to the narrative that was taking shape. I've heard many call this pool a great equalizer, a term once reserved for education and time, now I guess extends to public pools too. As we sit here today, none of us are more than a short drive in any direction from a number of year-round public pools that, oh, by the way, offer swim lessons as well. So for a great equalizer, it isn't. I've also heard Hingham say we must have a year-round pool because other surrounding communities have one. And I say, it's okay to drive those communities. Let them bear the cost of ownership of a year-round swim facility. Once upon a time, the country club wanted an ice rink on the property, another big idea. With the Pilgrim ice rink and other surrounding options, this was deemed to be unnecessary and redundant. And where does the skating club of Hingham operate today? From Rockland, and it's okay, they're doing great. As we enjoy and avoided no additional tax burden on the town for a town-owned ice rink, I support replacing the seasonal pool. I don't think you've heard any opposition today to a town pool. All are involved in support of a town call. It's clear that this effort has gone on a long time, and I've got a lot of respect to those that dedicated their time over a number of years. But after all this time and effort, we're faced with a take-it-or-leave-it proposal for a gold-plated swim complex that's not in line with the 2020 warrant. It's pushed into this warrant today ahead of approximately $160 million in taxpayer projects in the form of foster school and emergency center. Further, this take-it-or-leave-it ultimatum lacks the ability to make changes, and it's coupled with a strategy of do it now or it's going to cost you. What I do know is valuable time and town finances have been used, and we find ourselves faced with an expensive one-size-must-fit-all proposal without proper collaboration or input from the community. We could have designed a far more reasonable and cost-effective option for replacing the pool.
I would suggest when faced with a take it or leave it proposal, it's best to leave it, as it lacks optionality, alternatives, and a true willingness to come to a plan or agreement that can serve all parties. As it relates to costs, here's what we do know. We learned that we can't get a garage built at the country club for under $3 million. That's on footnote 9, page 88 in your yellow programs. We've underestimated it by 35%, same footnote, but somehow we're going to build an elaborate bathhouse with multiple facilities, year-round utilities, conference rooms, large lobby area for $2.7 million of the $8 million request, with a 4% contingency buffer. I fear we're going to find ourselves halfway across the ocean with only a forge ahead option, as turning back will be too costly. We will be asked for more taxpayer money to complete a project that is more than what's needed to restore what we had in a town pool. The other components, as some have mentioned, are parking, lighting, costs of a shuttle bus in some instances where a shuttle bus is needed. Both parking and lighting are safety issues, as well as unspecified cost drivers that are not in the current budget. So we should look at all the efforts done to date, not as the reason to vote yes, but a reason to take a bit more time to assure that the proposal is right for our town and is fiscally responsible with all of the current and upcoming competing town projects. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
George Jude Miller, 479 Main Street. Will the moderator hear a motion for the previous question?
As I mentioned earlier, the motion for the previous question has a particular purpose. Motion for the previous question is a motion to end discussion and to move to an immediate vote. Mr. Miller has proposed making a motion for the previous question, which I will accept, but it does require a couple of things. It requires a second, and a second has been made. But more importantly, it requires it's not debatable, but it does require a majority vote for adoption. So the motion for the previous question has been made and seconded. If you want to end debate, you will vote in favor of the motion for the previous question. If you wish to hear more discussion and more debate, you will vote against the motion for the previous question. So all those in favor of the motion for the previous question, the adoption of which would have us go to vote on Article 18 and implicitly on 17.4, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed to the motion for the previous question, please say no. No. It's clear that the ayes have it. The motion for the previous question has been adopted. So we now come to vote. Give me a moment. On the recommended motion under Article 18. I will not read it again. Now, I will remind you that for adoption, the motion under Article 18, as it involves borrowing, requires for adoption a 2/3 majority vote. All votes at Hingham Town Meeting are taken in the first instance as voice votes. So all those in favor of the recommended motion under Article 18, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The chair is in doubt. We will have a standing vote. Now, the way we do standing votes, number one, it's counterintuitive. If you'd like to have a standing vote, the first thing you need is a seat. First, you have to sit down, otherwise we might think you're voting in some other way. So, of course, the guests who are to my right are not authorized to vote. And the tellers are now going onto the field. So this is the way it's going to happen. When we do a standing vote, we do it from the front to the back. So we start with what I'll call, cleverly, row one. So when it comes time, and it's not time yet, you'll be asked to rise if you want to vote in favor of the recommended motion under Article 18. You will not resume your seat in the row being counted until the teller tells you to sit down. We do it from front to back because it's a lot easier to see the voters. So, Michelle, do we have everybody who's got assigned to 1 and 2 and 3 and such? Now remember, any voter has to have a seat. So now going by row, would the voters in the first row who wish to vote in favor of the recommended motion under 18, please rise and remain standing until your vote has been counted and you are instructed to resume your seat. And I don't vote.
Get up. Hey, Mark. Get up.
Do not resume your seat until you're directed to do so. Are you on to row 2? If you're on to row 2, you have to tell people to stand up. This is, given the complexity of what we're doing, we should be able to manage this. I can't because I can't do all the rows simultaneously. The tellers are doing it. We have assigned tellers to each section.
Always. It's just been done more efficiently. If it was done by section. Oh, it is done by section. Each row in each section.
People have checked in. When the checkers have concluded all of the affirmative votes, then we'll repeat the system from front to back for those who wish to vote in opposition for the recommended motion under 18. So the clerk will keep the count, and then when you're instructed to do so, again, going from the front to the rear, tell me when you're ready to count. So now, again, beginning with the first row, the row closest to me, please rise if you wish to vote in opposition, to vote against the recommended motion under 18, and do not resume your seat until you're instructed to do so and your vote has been counted. So row one, anybody in row one? And just wait until you're told, please, this is important stuff.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
Scott Stevenson, 133 HMS Halsted Drive. I have a point of order question.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I can't
This
make
is
out.
a point of order question. Is there still a quorum here?
Yes. If you're raising a point of quorum,
I am.
quorum is presumed to exist, having been established at the opening of the meeting, unless a formal point of quorum is raised, in which case we would have to vote on the motion for the questioning the quorum. Are you formally questioning the quorum, in which case we have to suspend what we are doing and count the room? When the counting is complete, then the clerk will come up here to my left and will determine whether 2/3 have voted in favor, in which case the motion will carry. If fewer than 2/3 votes in favor, the motion will be lost.
Abstentions or not?
No. How can you abstain? It's either yes or no. Abstentions or no votes. Not a vote. The votes are being tabulated. I'm about to announce the vote, and I do remind you that however this vote comes out, and whatever your particular vote may have been, this is obviously a major issue, and the voters have carefully considered what's before them, so I'd ask you to refrain from cheering or anything like that. There were 412 votes cast, so materially more than what constitutes a quorum. The yes votes were materially more than 2/3. The yes votes constituted 317 of 412. The no votes were 95 of 412. So approximately 77%, obviously materially more than 2/3, voted in favor of the recommendation under 18, and the vote has been adopted by 2/3.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like
Yes.
to make a motion to reconsider. My name is Dan Power, 1 King Philip Path.
So a motion to reconsider the vote that was just taken has been made and it has been seconded. And what is the purpose of a motion for reconsideration? If you go back to page 4 of the warrant booklet that I drew your attention to early on, it reads as follows. No vote, such as the one you just took, may be reconsidered except after a 2/3 vote on a motion to reconsider the vote has been adopted. So if you would like to reconsider what you just did, you will vote in favor of the motion for, let me strike that. No vote may be reconsidered. So if you want to reconsider the vote that you just took, you will vote in favor of a motion to reconsider. If you want to leave it the way it is, you will vote not to reconsider the vote just taken. So for people who would like to reconsider the vote that we just took, please say aye. For people who do not want to reconsider the vote we just took, please say no. No. The motion for reconsideration has been lost. Again, we go back to 17-4, which was held, as were we did not take final action, you'll recall, on 1, 2, and 3, and we held 4. So now we go back to 17, just to complete that. The item that was held, of course, was the appropriation of a sum of money of $550,000 for CPC. This requires, for its adoption, all of the items under 17 require for adoption a simple majority. All those in favor of the recommendation of the advisory committee under 17, including 4, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion under 17 has been adopted. We now go to Article 19. Article 19 asks the following question. Will the town vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from talking too fast, even for me, from available funds an additional sum of money for the design and construction of a new maintenance facility at the country club, or act on anything relating thereto? Approval of this article also requires a 2/3 majority because it involves borrowing. The recommendation is as follows. That the town appropriate an amount up to $815,000 in additional funds for the design and construction of a new maintenance facility at the South Shore Country Club. To meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said sum under Massachusetts General Laws 44-7 or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, we come to vote on the recommended motion under 19. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it. The motion is adopted. 20 would modify the size of the Long-Range Waste Disposal and Recycling Committee, which goes under the DBA Cleaner, Greener, Hingham. It's currently a 9-person committee, and the recommendation is that it be reduced in number to 7, and that the 7 members would serve staggered terms, which is typical of our committees of 3 years. So as you see, there would be 2 members whose terms would end in '23, 3 in '24, and 2 in '25, and then there'd be slots opening up every 3 years. Is there any discussion on the recommendation under 20? If not, we come to vote on 20. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's a unanimous vote. The Weir River Water System. Will the town vote to appropriate a sum of money to pay costs of making various Weir River System capital improvements, including but without limitation, design and construction of a new water tank, rehabilitation of the Turkey Hill water tank, various other capital improvements throughout the Weir River System, and determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by transfers from surplus bond funds, transfer of bond sale premium, reserved for appropriation, or otherwise, all in accordance with applicable Massachusetts law. A recommendation of the Advisory Committee and the Select Board and the Water Commissioners all unanimously voted in support of the recommendation under the article, and I'll read it. Recommended that the town appropriate the $7 million bond premium and the $112,074 excess bond proceeds from 2020 borrowing to finance the acquisition of the Weir River water system to be used for design and construction of a new water tank, rehabilitation of the Turkey Hill water tank, and various other capital improvements throughout the Weir River water system. Is there discussion? If not, we come to vote on the recommended motion under 21. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's a unanimous vote. 22. Will the town vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to pay for the cost of designing, engineering, constructing, reconstructing, repairing, and improving the Weir River water system, including payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, or act on anything relating thereto? This requires for adoption a 2/3 majority vote of the meeting, and the recommendation is consistent with the article, but it does specify the amount, which is an amount not in excess of $5.4 million. It requires for adoption 2/3. Is there discussion? If not, we come to vote on the recommendation under 22. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it. It's adopted. 23, Foster School construction, pre-construction rather. It's long, so I will only abstract it. Will the town raise and appropriate, borrow, transfer an amount of money to be expended under the School Building Committee 2017 for expenses related to the design, instruction, strike that, I misread it, design, architectural, engineering, owner's project manager, and other professional services to complete the design development and construction document preparation and to obtain site development and construction bids necessary to prepare the building site for construction of a new elementary school to replace Foster School, which school facility shall have an anticipated useful life as an educational facility for the instruction of school children of at least 50 years. Presumably that's the building, not the school children. And for which the town may be eligible for a school construction grant from the MSBA or anything relating thereto. I'll go to the motion, which is on 48. Recommended that the town appropriate the sum of $3,128,000, $28,912, for the purposes that I've just read for Foster School. The town intends to apply for an MSBA grant, but acknowledges toward the end of the motion that its non-entitlement discretionary program and any project costs in excess of any grant shall be the sole responsibility of the town, and that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the project funding agreement that may be executed between the town and the MSBA. This requires for adoption, again, because it involves borrowing, it does require for adoption a 2/3 vote of the meeting. Is there discussion on the recommended motion under 23? There being none, yes, sir. Come forward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ray Estes, 92 Fort Hill Street, for the School Building Committee. Good afternoon. I want to first acknowledge the absence of a dear friend. Aside from being a great personal friend, Dr. Ed Schreier was a member of our committee for 3 years, and his significant contributions to this project and our entire community will serve as a lasting legacy of his enthusiastic spirit, tireless and dedicated nature, and generous and welcoming demeanor. At long last, we are excited and proud to be here today, one step closer to achieving our goal. It was 5 years ago that our committee was formed by this body and our work began. We are Linda Hill, Chris Mercer, Jen Murphy, Michelle Eyre, Tim O'Neill, Kevin Lynch, and myself. And we are joined by an experienced and professional team of architects, project managers, and engineers led by 2 men who themselves are longtime Hingham residents, Gene Raymond and Chris Carroll. They, like us, have a vested interest in the success of this project. Our charge 5 years ago was clear: find a permanent solution to the significant deficiencies long impacting the delivery of curriculum and overall educational experience at Foster Elementary School. Many of the deficiencies have been discussed at length over many years, from failing mechanical systems to tandem classrooms lacking privacy and natural light, to grossly undersized spaces that require alteration or even elimination of normal operations seen in the other elementary school buildings. After initial disappointment and delay, we were given an opportunity to once again participate in a state grant program that will save Hingham taxpayers somewhere north of $20 million based on current projections. For those who questioned why we waited for that opportunity rather than embarking on this project independent of the MSBA program, that's the answer: more than $20 million. The precise amount of the grant Hingham will receive will be determined later this year when the design is refined and initial cost estimates are confirmed. We are here before you today for one reason only: to maintain a schedule that will enable us to build and occupy a new school in the fall of '24. That is the goal of our committee and the timeline we have established during our work on this project. We need to continue with our current pace and proceed to the next phase of design now before we receive formal MSBA approval in late August of this year. If we cannot, it will almost certainly delay a new school opening for another year. I think we can all agree that we've already waited too long. The need for this project has been acknowledged for 17 years. In the years since, we had to make choices to address other needs at the time believed to be more pressing, and took advantage of other opportunities too favorable to pass up. All the while, we have continued to invest in Foster Elementary School to maintain a safe and welcoming environment for students and staff. In order to continue with design work, we need interim funding representing a portion of the overall project cost. This fall, you will be asked to reconvene to consider full funding of this endeavor. Following MSBA board approval in late August, the anticipated cost of this project will be established, and we can share comprehensive design renderings and many other details about this project. Much of that work is ongoing right now. What I can tell you with both excitement and pride is that we intend to build a new school using natural building materials designed to complement the landscape of that wonderful property. The design will accommodate what has been projected as a growing enrollment, incorporating a 21st century learning environment that would deliver a newly developed education plan. Classrooms and common areas will enjoy abundant natural daylight, while the building achieves environmentally conscious and sustainable goals aligned with the principles of net zero carbon reducing energy consumption. In full disclosure, the cost of this project will be expensive. All of the available information reveals that construction costs are at an all-time high, double what they were a decade ago. Our committee is dedicated to overseeing this project in a manner that maximizes every opportunity to reduce and control that cost. To that end, just this week, we engaged in the first of what we expect will be many value engineering exercises and have already cut $1 million from the anticipated cost. That work will continue. We are all truly fortunate to live in Hingham. We enjoy beautiful natural resources, bright and committed volunteers who shepherd all of the issues and decisions represented in your warrant.
1 minute.
And generous and engaged residents like yourselves who help define who we are and what we strive to be. We make prudent decisions that support and improve the lives we have forged together in this community. Moving forward with our work on this project is one of those prudent decisions that will benefit our entire town for generations. Please join me in supporting our continued efforts and vote yes on this article. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on the recommended motion under Article 23? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Alan McDonald, 14 Partridge Drive, representing the Advisory Committee. I did want to quickly get up and report the Advisory Committee unanimously supported this amendment and talk just really quickly about the mechanics, a little bit of what this does. It's an important step, a necessary step in terms of allowing the project to progress to the next phase and into that final construction appropriation down the line in the fall that Rob mentioned. So far, the town has appropriated through this body $1.1 million to support the work of the School Building Committee to do the conceptual design and the schematic design for the Foster Building project. The next phase of the project is to dive into the more involved construction documents, the full construction design, and the actual bidding process, and then come to bring that to the full vote for the full construction budget. The original intent was to bring that full construction budget and do those two phases together at this annual town meeting. By virtue of sort of the rules and the process with the MSBA of getting all that, again, the worthwhile state funding to support the project, the timing of it required to break the two phases up apart because the MSBA will not be fully approving the project or voting to approve the project until August. And so the way the funding has been designed thus far supported the contracts and the expenses to get us to where we are now at the end of schematic design in April of this year. In order to allow it to have funding to support continued work to do the value engineering that Mr. Estes described and continue the project moving forward to bring a full construction budget to the town in the fall, this funding needs to be appropriated to keep that work moving. So we support, the Advisory Committee supports this move as an important step in moving the project forward and allowing to stay on schedule for that opening in the fall of 2024 for a long-awaited new foster school.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Is there further discussion on the recommended motion under 23?
Mike 5.
Number 5. Where am I? There I was.
Priya Howell, 26 Del Pret Drive. I have 4 kids. 3 of them are at foster. 1's now at the middle school. I wholeheartedly support this article. Also, the article in the fall. Also, the override that we desperately need. And I just ask all of our town meeting members to support our schools with the same enthusiasm that we support pools. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further before we come to vote? If not, we come to vote on the recommendation that is before you on page 48. All those in favor of the recommended motion under 23, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It's a unanimous vote. 24. 24 asks, will the town vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to be expended by the Select Board to be used to pay the expenses for design, architectural, engineering, owner's project manager, other professional services to complete the pre-construction bid documents in order to obtain construction bids for a new public safety facility to be located at 335 Lincoln Street, Hingham, Massachusetts, or act on anything relative thereto. The recommendation is at page 50. It explains in the comment that it's an expensive project with an estimated cost of about $38.5 million. The recommended motion, which I will read, is as follows. that the town appropriate an amount up to $1,585,380 to be expended by the Select Board to be used to pay expenses for the design, architectural, engineering, owner's project manager, and other professional services to complete the pre-construction bid documents in order to obtain construction bids for a new public safety facility at 335 Lincoln Street. To meet the appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow said sum under Massachusetts General Laws 44, Section 7, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. This requires for adoption a 2/3 vote of the meeting. Is there discussion? Yes, sir. Come forward, please, to microphone 1.
Hi, I'm Peter Goldstein, 44 Bel Air Road in Hingham. I believe and I support the expenditure for this facility, as I do for the schools. I think it's a necessary expenditure for the town. But beyond the funding for this facility, I would once again like to remind everybody of the human element in this case. The men and women who work and live in this facility and all of our safety facilities 24 hours a day, every day. They are our employees, and they deserve a facility that's appropriate and safe for the work that they do every single day on our behalf, both the police and the fire. Full disclosure, both of my sons are Hingham police officers. I assume you're applauding for the work that they do now and not for me for raising them over the years.
I think that is the sense of the meeting, sir. Yes.
Every day, like all of our law enforcement folks, the first thing they do when they get ready for work is put on a bulletproof vest. How many of you do that when you go to work? How many of you face the dangers that our police face every single day on the road? When you call 911, who's the first group to show up at your doorstep? A house fire, someone's ill, a car accident, a drunk person on the road. It's our police department. They deserve a facility that's appropriate for the work they do and the dangers, the growing dangers they face today. A place where they can train, where they can prepare for the work they do, where they can store equipment efficiently to respond to the dangers in our community. They're your employees. They're our family. They're our friends. They're our neighbors. And the same thing with the fire department. Who's the first one to run into a burning building to save your property, to save your life? Who trains endlessly to get you out of your crushed automobile while your family is hanging upside down from seat belts? Is it appropriate? Actually, let me ask you, would you allow hazardous chemicals in your kitchen while you're eating dinner with your family? In your living room? In your bedroom? Anybody? The current fire station doesn't do a great job, an efficient job, the job it should, at separating the hazardous dangers that they face, the hazardous chemicals that come back from these fires and these incidents on their equipment, on their vehicles, from the living space. They have a hard enough job. It's dangerous enough. The health incidents, long-term health incidents among firefighters is so high. It's one of the most dangerous jobs you can have. They deserve to work in a facility that separates them, that protects them from those dangers. We're obligated to provide them that. The buildings that our police and fire are in now do not provide address those safety concerns. They're not appropriate for the work that they're doing today. They can't store enough equipment in these facilities. It's hard to fit the vehicles that they have in these facilities. I urge you to take care of your employees. I urge you to vote yes on this funding and any future funding for this facility. And a lot of the folks in uniform are here today. I urge you also today as you leave to shake their hands and thank them for the work that they do on our behalf, putting their lives on the line to keep our community safe and to keep each one of us safe every day. Thank you.
Ms. McDonald for the Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Nancy McDonald, 190 High Street, member of the Advisory Committee. Excuse me. This article before you asks to borrow money for the development of pre-construction bid documents for proposed new public safety facility on 3A. The town has been working for many years to address space issues in key town departments and buildings, including the North Fire Station, the Police Department, the Senior Center, and Town Hall. The current facilities have served us well for decades, but no longer meet the needs of modern firefighting, policing, and our growing senior population. The North Fire Station was built 81 years ago in 1941 when the fire department did not include ambulance services. The current police department was space added onto the old high school in 1967 as a science wing and was converted to the police headquarters in 1998. In 2011, the police department lost 1,500 square feet when Shrek, the regional dispatch center, was moved into Town Hall. For the past 9 years, we have passed articles at various town meetings to study and address the burgeoning needs of these buildings and departments, mostly as individual projects. In 2019, the property at 335 Lincoln Street, next to Fresh Market, where Russo Marine used to be, became available in Town Meeting 2020, authorized the formation of a Public Safety Building Committee to determine the feasibility of combining North Station and the police headquarters into one building on this site. Combining these operations into one facility provides cost and operational efficiencies, as well as opens up much-needed space in Town Hall for expanding the senior center and school department. The building committee did an extensive study of the site and determined that it is appropriate for such a facility. Since then, we, as town meeting, have approved the land purchase in 2020 and then approved the creation of design documents at last year's town meeting. This past year, the committee has worked with the architects, the police and fire departments, the town engineer, the Hingham Municipal Light Plant, Hingham Net Zero, the town administration, and the select board to design an appropriate building that meets the programmatic needs of the departments as well as the concerns and priorities of the town. The final design is a building that is cost-effective, appropriate for Hingham in both size and design, utilizes electric systems for 93% of the energy needs, and is forward-thinking in the ability to retrofit the remaining 7% for which appropriate systems are not yet available. The design supports future increased capacity needs as the departments convert to electric vehicles. The committee's meetings were all open, public meetings and were well attended by our citizens. The committee also held 4 open house events where citizens could tour the existing facilities and view and discuss the proposed new design. It should be noted that based on community input, the final design is a 15% reduction in space from the initial versions. Approval of this article will allow the town to move forward to the next phase of the project, development of pre-construction bid documents, allowing the Public Safety Building Committee to continue its good work. If this article is approved, the committee anticipates a special town meeting in the fall to request the actual construction funds, which are anticipated to be in the $40 million range. The advisory committee recommends that the town borrow $1,585,380 for the development of these documents. Borrowing for construction documents is consistent with previous large capital projects the town has embarked on. We traditionally use short-term borrowing, known as bands, for the construction documents and roll those loans into the ultimate construction bond. The Board of Selectmen and the Advisory Committee both voted unanimously in favor of this article, and we hope you will as well. Thank you.
Unless there is further discussion, we come to vote on the recommended motion under Article 24. I will not read it again. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It's a unanimous vote required for adoption, 2/3. Let's keep moving through the warrant. Article 25 would reduce speed limits in the town in a certain fashion. The recommended motion is on 51, that the town vote to accept Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 90, Section 17C, which would do what? Which would authorize the Select Board, upon receiving a recommendation from the Traffic Committee, to establish a speed limit of 25 miles per hour on any roadway in thickly settled or business districts within the town that is not a state highway, all in the interests of public safety. Is there discussion? If not, we come to vote. Come forward. Come forward in my direction.
Susan Earl, 18 Fresh River Avenue. In reading this, I came to the conclusion.
Can someone assist with the microphone, please, so it's more appropriate? Just take it off the stand if it comes off, if it's maybe taped in place. There you go. Sorry.
Susan Earl, 18 Fresh River Avenue. On reading this article, I came to the conclusion that this was concocted for revenue enhancement. If you experienced driving down to Florida, going through some of the small towns that desperately need money, and they have these little road traps where they get fines for speeding, this sort of reminds me of exactly that. I think it was developed for revenue enhancement, so you can spend the money for all the other articles and not have to raise taxes. That's it.
Unless there is further discussion, we come to vote. Yes.
Robert Eaton, 19 Ocean View Drive, Hingham, who lives on a street with all kinds of little kids. And people routinely fly down that street at 40 plus miles an hour. I say, fine the bastards.
Unless there is further discussion, we come to vote on the motion under 25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Obviously, the ayes have it. Requires a simple majority. 26, I'll just skip to the motion. It's recommended under 26 that the town authorize but not require, pursuant to applicable general laws, the Select Board to transfer the care, custody, management, and control from the Select Board to the light plant of a portion of the property located at the transfer station at 0 Hobart Street, and to authorize the Select Board to enter into all agreements and execute any and all documents as may be necessary to effect said transfer for the construction and operation by the lighting plant of a new electrical substation and appurtenances on said property on such terms and conditions as the Select Board deems in the best interests of the town. The explanation, of course, was in the warrant. I'll just jump back to the comment, which speaks to the provision of electrical power to the town of Hingham and adding a third transmission line. Is there discussion under the recommended motion under Article 26, which requires for its adoption a 2/3 majority? If not, we come to vote. All those in favor of the recommended motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's unanimous. Now on to the high school tennis courts. Will the town vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer a sum of money not to exceed $864,000 to be expended under the direction of the school committee and/or the recreation committee for the purpose of funding a project that would construct 6 new post-tension concrete tennis courts at Hingham High School? The recommendation is that that happen, and that a sum of money not to exceed $864,000 be expended for the aforesaid purposes under the oversight of the school committee and actually the school committee. The motion does not reference the recreation committee. Is there discussion on the recommended motion under 27? If not, we come to vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Article 28 asks the question, will the town authorize the school department to enter into a municipal lease of up to 5 years for the purpose of leasing new 7D as in David transportation vans used for special education transportation? The recommendation is that we proceed in accordance with the question. Is there discussion? If not, we come to vote on the recommended motion under Article 28. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Article 29 asks, will the town amend the zoning bylaw in the following manner? And basically, it is to adopt gender neutral and make other term revisions. This requires for its adoption 2/3, not because it involves borrowing, but because it involves the change of the zoning bylaw, which by law requires a 2/3 majority, and you see the kinds of changes that are proposed. Words used in one gender will include all, selectmen, etc., will be replaced with select board and such. Is there discussion under the recommended motion under Article 29? If not, we come to vote. Requires for adoption 2/3. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It was more than 2/3. I think I heard a nay, so it was not unanimous. Amending the zoning bylaw for residential uses. It is set forth in your warrant booklet at pages 54, 55, and the recommended motion is at the bottom of 55, carrying on to 56. Is there a discussion of the recommended motion of the Planning Board and the Advisory Committee, which voted unanimously in favor of the recommended motion? Is there discussion? Hearing none, we come to vote. All those in favor of the recommended motion under Article 30, please say aye. Aye. All those in favor, no. Next, we come to Article 31. Article 31 would make a series of changes, amendments, modifications to the special permit and site plan review procedures here in Hingham. Requires for adoption a 2/3 vote of the town meeting. The Advisory Committee and the Planning Board voted unanimously in support of the article. I will now proceed to read the 14 pages of single-spaced text. I always wanted to have a filibuster, right? I'll stipulate and stand on warrant. Are there questions or debate on the recommended changes to the Hingham zoning bylaw that are set forth at pages 58 and following? If not, we come to vote on those. All those in favor of their adoption, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's a unanimous vote. Article 32. Article 32 is the caboose here. It requires for adoption a unanimous vote. No, it doesn't. Will the town authorize but not require the select board to accept grants of easements for streets, water, drainage, sewer, and utility purposes or any public purpose on terms and conditions the board deems in the best interest of the town or act on anything related thereto? The recommended motion is that the town do that. And it's at the top of page 73. It's a simple majority for adoption. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. I would invite the chair of the select board, Joe Fisher, to make a motion to dissolve the 2022 Hingham annual town meeting. It requires a second, but it is not debatable. Go ahead.
No debate. I make a motion to dissolve the 2022 town of meeting.
I think we're up to a fourth. Right. All those in favor of calling it a day, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It's unanimous. The 2022 Hingham Town meeting is dissolved.
Mr. Moderator, thank you, sir.